Okay, so I did mention that I originally wanted to be a dropship pilot. And this right here is arguably the best true dropship in the game. So this is the Anvil Valkyrie. And again, while I don't think I will be piloting this in the verse, having it in the fleet isn't necessarily a bad idea, even though the Carnival Caravan, look us up, link in the down below section, is not as offensively minded as PXP is, my old org. We're more defensive minded, and we probably won't be attacking anyone. Like, this is still a good ship to have around. I don't know what the hell you would carry it on. I would think a Kraken would be about the only thing that you could actually load this onto. It's going to have good range just given its size, but it doesn't really have any sleeping quarters, and it carries, I think, 20 people. You can see it's got a bunch of room for gear. It's got these side doors that open up, and these guns kind of pivot out, so you can have door gunners here. It can actually fit something the size of an Ursa rover. I don't think anything of the Atlas chassis fits in here. I think they're just a hair too tall. But this thing is just covered in turrets. It is made to land a fair number of people in a hot zone. So there's one of your lower turrets. Here's where 10 people are. Same thing on the other side. This opens up. One of the things I don't like about this is they need to put a door right here and glass right here, because otherwise, anytime you open up these back parts, the whole ship is gonna vent. So that's a little bit of a design flaw. So you do have 5 beds for the crew, so enough people to man the remote turrets, man the lower turret, man the upper turret, and fly. But the 20 crew are kind of on their own. Same thing with the M2. Either the M2 or the A2. One of those. But anyway, this is hands down, in my opinion, best dropship in the game for inserting a lot of troops into a hot zone. Like, this is what the Cuddy Steel is trying to be. So let's go ahead and get this thing fired up and get you an outside look here. It flies pretty decently for such a large ship. Especially those VTOLs are going to come into effect. It is relatively streamlined. It's got those big wings. So this thing actually should do decent when it gets into atmosphere. Yeah, all in all, great ship. If you want to be a dropship pilot, if you want to have something that is pretty much the closest equivalent to the dropship in Aliens, this is it. This is how you're going to get your Marines in there. Now, let me make sure I get over that ship that's crashed right there. Looks like it was a Saber. Kind of swinging back to its purpose, or what I see its purpose as being in the Carnival, as we'll mostly be a spacefaring fleet. That's kind of a good question. I am not sure what exactly this thing's role would be. I would assume if we have some ground assets, or if people get taken hostage, for example, or we need to move in troops, this would more be a question for Gruntling, who I should really have on one of these days just to kind of talk about some of the tactical plans for the Carnival. Just kind of give you guys an overview of what we're thinking for that without giving away too many secrets. But yeah, Anvil Valkyrie, great dropship. Not totally sure how I personally will use it in the Carnival, but that won't be my problem since this will not be the ship I will be flying. So if you and 5 friends want to join the Carnival and get a 30K, that is what you need to do. So this is ironically another rare ship that I have in my hangar, and I definitely won't be getting rid of this one. Mining is one of those things that is just really zen-like. This is the Argo Mole, which is the medium ship in the mining lineup. It has 3 mining lasers, probably a crew of, I'd say you could run it with 2 people, but ideally you'd probably run it with 4 to 5. This one, if you're wondering about that color and why I say that it's rare, even though a lot of people have the Argo Mole, is this is the Argo Mole Carbon. And I got it just because I like black, crimson, or white ships, because that's the Carnival colors. And I did not realize this ship was going to be a rarity in the verse. They sold this black model during the concept sale, and they've never sold this model or this skin again. And my friend Knight, on his account, they spells with an N, so N-I-G-H-T as opposed to K-N-I-G-H-T, which is his other account. He's kicking himself because all of his night ships, as opposed to Knigget, and I have to be careful how I say that, are black ships. Like, he prefers black ships on that account and white ships on the Knight account. And so I got this one, and for me it was just kind of like, yeah, this is cool, and he's kind of like, damn it, I want that one, which I offered to gift it to him, but he's like, no, it's fine. But this is the Argo Mole. If you've never seen the interior, it's very Argo-y. You've got I'll just take you on a quick tour. That's where we just came up. All of your components are here. You got like a little kitchenette here. See if it'll let me in. This is the living area. Yeah, so there's room for 4 people. So yeah, I guess a crew of 4. One of your laser operators or maybe your pilot will be working double duty. That's how you get down to one of the mining turrets. So one of the problems they are having is that the mole was less efficient than taking out 3 prospectors, which are the light miner. And apparently they've addressed that on this patch. I don't know exactly how, but they say they have. Let's go VTOL and get that door open. This server is on the struggle bus, so I might be calling it here for the night. So this is probably my last ship. I do have 2 Argo ships, actually 3. I do have an Argo SRV, just that isn't in the game yet. And the SRV, this ship, all of my Argo ships are ones that are going to be staying in my fleet. I very much think the Mole will have a purpose in a traveling fleet, as this thing will be able to go out and mine quantum fuel and I guess hydrogen fuel or whatever it is that that other ships use for just their impulse engines, just these regular engines here. This ship, the Mole, will be able to mine it. You'll be able to get your hands on another ship like the Galaxy, which I also have, to refine it, and then you're self-sufficient. Your ship doesn't have to constantly keep going back to some port to refuel. You can just have your miners go out, mine the fuel, bring it back to your refiners like the Galaxy and whatever refining ships they come up with, and or the Expanse, and you're self-sufficient. You no longer have to land. You team that up with an Endeavor that is producing food, and you literally never have to go back. Hello, somebody's targeting me. And now they're not. Oh well. So that brings up another point. So Argo ships are not combat ships. You can just make out the guns right there to either side of the bridge. They are, I believe, size 2s, and it's got 2 of them. This is not a combat ship. It might have respectable armor when it gets up there, but it's not maneuverable. It's not fast. It doesn't have big guns. This is not the ship you want to have in combat. So what you do want to do with this ship is, if you're putting it out in risky systems, like let's say Pyro, which is probably going to have better mining than Stanton, you better pay for an escort, or you better be real careful where you mine. So that's going to be the downside of owning any ship with a crew of more than like 2 or 3 people. So keeping with the theme, this is the Argo RAFT, and this one staying in my hangar is probably about 50-50, I'd say. It really depends on a couple factors. First thing I want to point out is that these right here are the large cargo containers, which technically aren't in the game. When you call up the raft and you store cargo in it, it stores little boxes inside of these big boxes, but eventually with ships like the Hull C, these big boxes will be what are on the outside. And that is part of what my plan with the Argo SRV, or the Argo RAFT, is I'm kind of playing for the future with this thing, in the sense that I am hoping that one of the purposes of, I think I actually want to go to the lower deck. Yeah, it's kind of what I was worried about this one. So the raft, for whatever reason, they've been having a hell of a time with the elevator on this ship, which I don't get, because this is a relatively new ship, and for whatever reason, it has a lot of problems with the elevators. But the inside of the ship is really neat. It is a cool ship. I'm going to see if I can get in. Yeah, unfortunately, can't get this one off the ground. So Argo RAFT is having problems. Hopefully in a week or 2, they'll have this one fixed. But for right now, I'll just walk you around the outside of it. Again, Argo, industrial ship, not fighters. I believe you can see the guns are... where are the guns on this thing? I think it's got like 2 size 1s. I think it's a turret on top, actually, now that I think about it. It has a really cool living space. Yeah, there you can see them. Actually, they look like size 3s, either size 2s or size 3s. Either way, not a combat ship. Carries about the same cargo as, I think, like a Freelancer, maybe a Connie Taurus, somewhere in there. But one of the reasons I have this one is because I think eventually what will happen is the raft, you can sort of see there's a window right there. There's a tractor beam right here that allows you to lift things up. And I think the raft's main purpose will be loading and unloading the Hull series, like the larger Hull series. And I do have a Hull D that runs in our fleet, so the raft will go along and load and unload the Hull D. So this will kind of be, if you want to think about the Hull D as being as part of a cell, this raft would, and probably an SRV, would be part of that cell in order to load and unload the Hull D as quickly and efficiently as possible. Kind of too bad I can't get into that one, because the interior on that ship is competing with the 400i for one of the best designed interiors in this game so far. So I'll show you that one eventually. Too bad, but we'll get there. So anyone that's watched my streams for any amount of time will recognize this one. This one is the Banu Defender, which is typically my daily driver more times than not. I'll kind of drive this one, the 400i, and the MSR are kind of the ones that I end up taking out the most when I'm not doing something specific like mining or running cargo. Obviously, this is not a cargo ship. This is technically a heavy fighter. It has got incredible range. The only harp, I've got two harps on this ship. One is the Senge guns. These are Banu weapons, and when they first came out, they're clearly broken. They're hit scan. They're tachyon cannons. So you would point it at a ship, and it would instantly hit as long as it was within range. And they decided, probably rightly so, that was overpowered. But they've never gone back and fixed these guns ever since. And so the first thing you do when you run this ship is you pull the Senges and you put on literally any other gun. I've tried testing the Senges in every patch since, and sometimes they register a hit and sometimes they don't. They don't seem to do a lot of damage. So yeah, they're not great. Now, the second beef that I have with this ship, even though I love it, even though it's practically my daily driver, is I have a general rule with ships with interiors that never trust a ship with a bed that does not have a toilet. Because I don't know about you, but I probably sleep once every 16 hours or so. I have to go to the bathroom a lot more than that. So, where do the Banu poop? They might go back and address that at some point, because there is the little exterior point. But other than that, yeah, I absolutely love this ship. It is not a meta ship by any stretch of the imagination. I would think one of the things it's going to get when the Banu Merchantman eventually, come on, when the Banu Merchantman eventually does roll out, is this ship will get custom MFDs, and so this will all be Banu right here, as opposed to looking like generic ones. Other than that, it's the coolest little crab ship in the verse. You probably won't win too many fights with it. It is relatively maneuverable. It doesn't have a huge cross section this way, but this way it's very easy to hit. On the side, it's very long for what it does. But all in all, pretty cool ship. I love it. Yeah, that's all I really gotta say about this one. I love the Banu Defender. We got 3 kids and we're doing just fine.
Thank you.
So I do like to do bounties in this ship, at least NPC bounties. I wouldn't try to tackle a fellow human in this ship unless I knew they were a bad pilot. Just, this ship is pretty effective against NPC pilots. I wouldn't try it against a human. I can't stress the range of this ship enough that I will regularly fly all over Stanton system, running bounties or box missions or pretty much anything, bunker missions in this thing. And you can make it across the system. So when Pyro rolls out, the Banu Defender might be one of the few ships this size that can actually go. I think I'm going to be pulling in from the bottom here. Hang on. That can actually go through that system without being completely screwed. So if you have a Banu Merchantman this ship does not come with it. So if you bought the Banu Merchantman, this is not the snub for that ship, but the hangar is designed to carry one of these. So when I land, sort of check the size of this ship, and you'll get a sense for what'll fit in the Banu Defender or the Banu Merchantman's hangar. Pretty decent sized ship for all that it does. In fact, some of the more elite PvP groups will use the Defender as kind of an impromptu drop ship. You just kind of bring in a bunch of people on that ramp up front, just kind of have them lay down in the back, and then kind of quickly drop them. Woo, somebody blew up. This ship is also good for running box missions, and you can even fit a large box, a true 1 SEU box in here, not the little hand carry ones, but one of the ones that you have to use a tractor beam. That'll fit through the nose on this. Now, again, once you have to deal with gravity in the game, that's gonna be a different story. Like, there isn't a cargo grid in here, so yeah, you have a big box back there that's flopping around. That could be problematic, but right now you could definitely run box missions in this thing. Crab ship for the win. All right, so a little explanation on this one. At one point, I had every version of this ship in my hangar. When this game goes gold, I will probably have no Hercules in my hangar. So this is the A2. You can tell because it has the extra big guns down below. It has the extra big guns up top. It has more armor. This is the one that drops the big ass bombs. So speaking of the big ass bombs, let's take a look at them. This is still ridiculous. What they need to do is put the buttons down on this part of the landing gear, and it would make a lot more sense. Even the A2 can carry a tonk. This is, at the moment, the premier cargo mover and the only ship in the game that can move tonks and ships on the Atlas chassis. These are Moabs, which are size 10 bombs, I believe. Basically nukes. I have all three in my hangar right now. The C2, which doesn't have these and carries the most cargo, is a loaner for the Banu Merchantman. The M2 is a loaner for the Liberator, which I knew that. Normally I do not apply CCUs until the ship is actually in the game, but once I saw that the loaner was an M2, I was like, okay, I'm not losing anything by upgrading to the Liberator, which is kind of the almost looks like a World War II landing vessel, mini carrier, sort of pocket carrier. So the difference with the A2, and this A2 is actually in my hangar for right now, but I have a CCU to a Nautilus. So eventually this will be a Nautilus, which I think, ironically, has a lower crew count than this monster. And the reason I did that was because the Carnival is a spacefaring fleet, and I mostly plan on setting up my Merchantman at an empty point in space and letting people fly to me. So having a big ass bomber where most of the guns point down below wouldn't make a lot of sense. So instead, I'm gonna have a Nautilus, which can drop a minefield around the BMM, and as long as you're friendly, you can easily fly through that minefield. If you turn hostile, you're going to be in the middle of a minefield, and things are going to go very badly for you. That's the plan right now anyway. So I do have each of these in my fleet right now, but when the game goes gold, I won't have any. Of all of them, I would think probably the M2 is probably the best of both worlds. It has all the cargo and vehicle carrying capacity of the C2 to a certain extent. It carries a little bit less, but it carries armor. It doesn't have all the guns of this monster, but again, you can see all the guns on this thing are on the bottom. It's got one turret there. It's got big shoulder-mounted turrets up there. It's got a turret there, but most of its guns face down. So it kind of has the same firepower as a hammerhead, but it all faces down, which is ideal if you're in like a military org that is going to do a lot of landings. Not so ideal if you're a spacefaring trade fleet, which is why I prefer the Nautilus. Plus the Nautilus has some big ass guns on the front. But this series, yeah, A2, perfect for like ground invasion type fleets. M2, good for ground invasion type fleets. C2, if you want to run cargo, is probably the best cargo mover even when the whole series is in, because the C2 will be able to enter atmospheres, and for a ship this size, this thing can move. It is it's not super fast, but like all Crusader ships, it has good acceleration for its size. It has these big wings, so it actually flies and handles pretty decent for a ship this size. So yeah, I don't have one in my fleet, but I would recommend if you're a hauler and you don't really care about giving up the modularity of the Caterpillar. This thing hauls more cargo and flies better. Or the C2 does, not the A2. Actually, I think the A2 might carry more cargo too. It's just... So this is kind of one of those weird situations where even though I CCU'd all versions of this ship, this is still a vehicle, depending on what niche you're in, I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. So again, if you want to be a Nautilus pilot in the verse, or a Liberator pilot, or service crew on a Banu Merchantman, links to the Carnival in the description below. Otherwise, I think I am going to call this one here, and we'll call this part 1, and I'll do part 2 eventually. What I'm going to do right now is, ironically, use the C2, that is the loaner for the Banu Merchantman, loaded up with all my gear that's on Orison right now, and fly it to Grim Hex. So hopefully when I roll out part 2 to this, I'm giving you the good news that I was actually able to do that, and I didn't lose it all in a crash or a bug. So wish me luck, y'all. Thanks for watching this one. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think down below. If you think I'm way off on one of these ships, if you think the idea for the Carnival is neat or stupid, let me know. Always love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Catch me next time.